Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the live stream here on Sunday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, live from Alvin, Texas. It's the BadAzz Fantasy Baseball Podcast. My name is Rudy Rudolph, and I'm your host for this evening. And we'll be talking about all things fantasy baseball. I welcome all you badasses and people who want to be badasses out there in the fantasy baseball world. And it is my intent to help you and build a community of people who like fantasy baseball and like to follow it, and give a little bit different perspective too from some of the podcasts that I hear out there, and to give you my perspective on it, and then share some of your perspectives on it as well as this community begins to grow. I am a production team of 3 people, me, myself, and I. I do everything pretty much. So if something's all jacked up and it's all spitting out and shitting all over the place, then you know there isn't any place else to look but to me. So, I'll fall on the sword. So we got 3 weeks to go before opening day. 3 weeks. So we're really starting to get into that near term of fantasy baseball where you want to start having some tools and things already developed and be looking at some things if you have not already. If you've already been doing some things to get ready for this season, then you're probably tracking. Again, my name is Rudy, and I'm your host, and I will be your host until there is no more of this BadAzz Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I do want to throw out a thanks. I've always told folks, you don't get somewhere and perform at a high level or do anything winning-wise without some help along the way. And unless you're Einstein, you invented something nobody else thought of. But in this case, I certainly wanted to throw out a thanks to my brother Jeff for getting me started in fantasy baseball in 2017 by inviting me to a friends league he was in. So hats off to you up there in Indiana for getting me started in this thing. And by the way, he's a really good fantasy sports player in general, across the board, all sports. I also wanted to thank the guys at CBS Fantasy Baseball Today, that whole team, Frank, Scott, Chris Towers, and Chris Welsh. I just think a lot of those guys, they provide exceptional analysis and opinions. And I'm telling you, without help out there, I know in my personal situation, I could not have achieved the level of performance in Yahoo. As I've said before, achieving the diamond level performance level in Yahoo last year, I couldn't have came anywhere near that without people's help along the way with analysis. And there's many other providers out there. I'm certainly not someone who does it alone. Fantasy Pros is another one out there that provides some good information as well. And there's a host of them, and you can go out there and look at them and look at the different podcasts and the different analysts that are out there, and you'll be a better player for it across the board. We got some important dates coming up. March 23rd to the 26th for those folks out there that are interested in the National Fantasy Championship platform, and in particular the NFBC, the National Fantasy Baseball Championship. They're going to be doing their live drafts 23 through 26 of this month in Las Vegas. So who in the hell out there needs their arm twisted to go to Las Vegas? Man, I wouldn't. I have never made that trip. I have competed in the NFBC before in 2021, but I have never went to a live draft. I think that'd be a hell of a lot of fun. And that's something I could see a BadAzz fantasy baseball podcast league doing somewhere down the road one year. Also, we got March 26th. Speaking of the BadAzz Fantasy Baseball Podcast League, that's a long-ass title, by the way. We're having our draft on March 26th at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's March 26th, 7 p.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in joining this podcast league, it's going to be a 12-team utilized on we'll use the Yahoo Fantasy platform, and we'll have a standard 12-team head-to-head league, playoffs and all, and the champion of that league will receive a BadAzz Fantasy Baseball championship ring at the end of the season. So more to follow on that. You can go to our website at www.badazzsports.com. BadAzz always on our channel is spelled with 2 Z's, so it's BadAzzSports.com. BadAzzSports.com. Go there, and there's a link there you can click on to link to an invite to the league, and let me know that you're interested in joining the league, and we'll get you signed up. 3 weeks before opening day, so the time is now to start getting your sleeves rolled up and ready for the season. March 30th will be opening day. Once opening day starts, our traditional standard season-long leagues are no longer available. So your cutoff for a full 162-game season-long league to draft would be prior to March 30th's opening day. Some fantasy baseball news out there. Our BadAzz sessions, those are learning blocks, and I go all the way to the very basic and try to walk you through some of the basic considerations to what platform to play on, what type of league to join, what scoring format, and so on and so forth. And it's tailored primarily, the BadAzz sessions are primarily produced for beginners and intermediate type players that want to get better. Obviously, if you've had a lot of experience, then you'll find that these sessions, until you get to probably session number 3, where we start talking about draft preparation, you may find out, learn some new things there from the things that I've developed and considerations in developing tiers and building your draft board and getting ready for this season. So the BadAzz sessions are built like that, to kind of go into the basics and walk through the process of, just what even to consider if you've never played before. And I think it's a good place to start, and it's something I wanted to develop first of all, to go back to the things that I learned and try to share that with those of you out there in the fantasy baseball world. I'm not in this to be the next great podcast host in fantasy baseball. I don't have a broadcasting degree, and I never went to Syracuse or anything. My name is Rudy, and I'm definitely not a guru at any of this stuff, other than I love to play fantasy baseball, and hope to use this venue through these live streams that are posted on YouTube. We'll also have audio versions as well out there on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So you can find us there. You can also listen to an audio version on our website as well. So many places, but not nearly as many as a lot of them I hear out there. A lot of these professional podcasts, and I'm not knocking them, but oh my gosh, they go down a list that is a mile long about all the places and things, and sign up here and sign up there. Oh my gosh, subscribe, follow, love, hug, fondle, whatever me on this site or that site. But hey, to each their own. I'm keeping it pretty simple and sticking with Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as far as platforms. And I tell you, that's enough to follow. So please follow me on one of those platforms or all of them or whatever. And I won't sit here and panhandle you all day about it. All right. So we have 2 sessions of BadAzz sessions posted. We have 2 more coming, the 3rd and the 4th session, and then I'll be done. I should be able to get those done. Should have those posted this coming week. And then we'll move ahead with our live stream on Sundays throughout the season, and in between those Sundays, produce some recorded. Well, I'll live stream them, but they'll also be posted there on YouTube and the other platforms I mentioned to listen to as well. If you are in the mock drafting mode right now, meaning you're out there already actively participating in mock drafting, you are cross-checking, kind of looking at your draft board, your draft list and priorities by whatever system you use. If you're really tracking right now, you're probably already have been testing that out in various mock drafts out there to test your rankings, the people that you're targeting, and seeing where that fits in the current draft environment, which it does change, and it changes fairly rapidly up until it gets close to the season starting, and we're already seeing a slowdown. It's very volatile at first, up until about the last week or so, and now it's starting to slow down, meaning the rankings and the average draft position of players, the variations they're not moving as much, and when they are moving, it's mostly due to some circumstance, mostly injury related for the most part. So if you're in the mock drafting mode right now, you're already playing like a badass, okay? And that's where we want to be. If you're not there yet, don't worry. Go back and look at those BadAzz sessions, get brushed up, figure out what you want to do and where you want to play, and get caught up to the point in which we start mock drafting. So if you're walking through that process with me, then next week is going to be your week to get up to the draft preparation episode so you can learn how to be prepared for that, and then start practicing that through mock drafting up into the time in which you do your actual drafts. So that's something we got to get tracking on. Hopefully you're already tracking on it out there, you badasses. All right. If you drafted early in these early leagues, I'm not going to condemn you for it. I'm not going to shame you for it or anything. I just will say that that's not my cup of tea. And the reason being, I understand that when you study fantasy baseball and all, and you are you're really involved in it early on, I will tell you, a lot of those people that are early on, way early, and I'm talking about like December, and I know Yahoo doesn't even post their drafting platform until sometime in January, I think it was. But even in January, I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, if you're in the know of guys that are coming up and prospects and all this, and you use numbers and you crunch them and blah, 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 you may seem like you have an upper hand, but upper hand of what? I mean, is that worth waiting till now? Because if you drafted back then, maybe you had guys that we're going to talk about here in a minute with injuries already. And then you have to go through a 6-month season with people that you drafted that haven't even played game one. So, no, I'm not in favor of that. So, but if you did already do that and you're already drafted in leagues, what have you, you have a friends and family league and you had to draft, whatever, that's fine. I'm saying if you have a choice, I'm in that window right now, about 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out. It's really hot. Want to get my drafts in and get them done right before the season and be ready to go. So get out there and put your draft strategy together if you haven't already. Start mock drafting. Do it in a platform that you intend to be playing this season. And I think mock drafting would be helpful no matter where you do it. But it's the most optimal help that you can get from mock drafting is use your platform or platforms that you intend to play. Also, when you're doing a mock drafting, make sure that you're drafting in the type of league that you intend to play in. For instance, in Yahoo, they have mock drafting you can do now, and you can do it in head-to-head format or roto. And that's important to practice in whatever you're going to compete in. What are you going to compete in head-to-head, roto, or both? You'll want to draft and practice drafting in those game formats. Then also the number of teams in those mock drafts can vary, and I'm referring to Yahoo, from 8 teams to 12 teams. Of course, there's other leagues that have more people than 12, so to speak. So I will tell you, you select those teams. If it's a standard 12-team league you intend to play in, well, then do your mock drafting in 12-team league formats as well. If you didn't already know, now you know you have got shit in your toolbox to get your ass out there and be a badass. So we do have some injuries going on, and I did want to start talking about them out of the gate because just briefly let you put them on the radar, and there's more every day. I mean, all you got to do is wait till tomorrow, and there'll be another list. But I'm sure most of you heard about Gavin Lux, so hopefully if you've had early drafts, you didn't draft him because he's out for the year for the L.A. Dodgers. Vladimir Guerrero appears to have some type of injury. I believe it was related to his knee. I believe he had some knee soreness. And not sure the extent of that, but that's just came down the news pipeline. Juan Soto is having some calf issues. Jacob deGrom has been in the news lately. I mean, after he signed that huge contract with the Texas Rangers, one of the best pitchers in all baseball, appears to have some injury concerns already before the season. So people that have been out there and experienced fantasy baseball players will tell you and know real quick when you say certain names, it already implies a little fear about injuries because the injury history is significant on some players, and Jacob deGrom certainly fits that category in that list. Another one that's come off surgery, I think a couple years ago, Jack Flaherty has of the St. Louis Cardinals has some kind of tightness or something going on. That's never a good thing for a pitcher. James Paxton, same thing. I watched part of that game. I actually saw him stretch his I think it was a hamstring or an oblique or something, and I saw him pitching, and he was trying to stretch it out and stay in the game, but you could tell he couldn't. So the Big Maple, as they call him, the Big Maple is hurt again. And fantasy baseball experienced players out there know James Paxton has not been healthy for about 3 years, I think. And he was dominant when he was healthy. Rookie Andrew Painter, pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. Really looking forward to this young man and seeing what he could do. He's already went out there and pitched a pretty good first game, but now he's got some kind of tightness or tenderness that you'll definitely need to put on your radar if you intend take a high side approach to drafting Mr. Painter. I also have Tyler Glass now. Now, he was coming back from an injury late last year, and it was expected that he was going to probably be at a reduced innings level for the year anyway. And now he's come up, I believe, elbow or, again, another injury. Could be an oblique. Sorry if I'm not a doctor, and I can't remember every single injury, but I did want to put them on the map for you in case you hadn't heard. Because I don't want you to get in a draft and start drafting people and then find out, oh, shit, he was hurt. Damn it. Why not listen to that fucking badass fantasy baseball dude? All right. Bautista, that closer for the Baltimore Orioles, he's got some kind of pain too. I think he had a knee injury like late last year or maybe at the end of the year or something. So I think he's dealing with lower body something. And so if he was on your closer radar to get on your roster this year, you may want to track his progress. Seiya Suzuki of the Chicago Cubs, outfielder, right fielder. Apparently he's hurt too. So, and that's significant because I think he certainly made my list of somebody to look for a bounce back. I'm not even a bounce back, a bounce up for the first time, because his rookie year last year certainly was well below the expectations. But I think now that he was settled in Chicago for a year, that his numbers should improve. But now I see he's injured. So, again, put him on your radar. Check him out. Some other things going on that affect, believe it or not, fantasy baseball is a pitch clock. And I got a thing about this damn pitch clock, okay? From this perspective, I love what it's doing for the game. It is certainly improving the pace of play. If that was the goal, that's going to win, get A's, highest marks, 5 gold stars, whatever the hell. Matter of fact, Milo Hamilton, who used to announce games for the Astros and then goes back 50 years before that to the Chicago Cubs and so on. But Milo Hamilton used to give out the gold stars and off his scorecard, and every time I think of that, I think of him. But calling out to Milo Hamilton out there. So the pitch clock, though, I think they should call it the game clock. Because think about it. When you call it the pitch clock to begin with, it implies it's affecting the pitcher. What I am seeing, too, and what I thought was possible out there is, how many batters do you know, and hitters, guys out there and gals that have been watching baseball, how many times have you seen batters up there? They'll get in the box and take the first pitch, and then they'll get out. They'll undo the straps on their batting gloves and re-strap them, and they'll twitch their shoulder one way and twitch it the other way, and they'll twitch their mouth away. And if you're looking on video, you can see they'll do their mouth like this and maybe scratch their head a little bit. They might scratch their ass, grab their balls or something, and take forever to get in the box. Robinson Cano used to drive me crazy. I don't know if he's on a roster, but he might as well retire. He takes far too long to get up there and bat. So, obviously, the pitch clock, no doubt, is going to affect some pitchers because of their pace, their tempo, as StatCast calls it, the tempo of that player at which he pitches. So with the new rules, that clock, once that catcher throws that ball back to the pitcher and the pitcher receives the ball, that clock starts at 15 seconds. And with 8 seconds or more left, the batter has to be in the box facing that pitcher, basically ready to hit the ball. Of course, you get 20 seconds on the pitch clock if there's runners on base. So, and there's a whole host of things, and we'll talk about some of the the throws to the bases and how that might affect some things. But I wanted to talk about pace first of all on this live stream, because I think StatCast, and if you haven't checked out StatCast before, go check it out and look at what they call slow tempo players. And I think it's interesting. It could be trivial, and it could not. It could turn out to not be a huge factor in the overall scope of fantasy baseball and analysis or what have you. But if you have some people really on the extremes of that, you might want to pay attention to how they're doing in spring, because that's probably what they're really working on, is their pace of game. So players, for instance, who are on the real slow tempo end of StatCast stats, and I don't know how to quantify this other than these are some of the slower folks. Luis Garcia, the guy from the Astros that rocks the baby before he pitches, throws the ball, and I'm not talking about Josh Naylor. Boy, that was ridiculous. But anyway, Luis Garcia is someone who you'll have to watch for. I mean, he could be a really good pitcher to put on your roster this year, but if in spring he's struggling to pitch within the confines of this new rule, I mean, maybe it'll go in and weigh into some of your factoring in maybe a little bit when it's between Luis Garcia and two other pitchers that you could pick. Maybe that's something that breaks the tie, so to speak. Another slow one, Blake Snell. I think a lot of podcast analysts out there believe that Blake Snell, or have a reason to think that Blake Snell will have a good season. He's in a contract year. So, as we know, guys have been playing this for a while. When you're a Major League Baseball player and you're in a contract year, the statistics and will show that more times than not they have great, much better seasons than normal. Shohei Ohtani showed up on the slow tempo players. I think for some reason I don't worry about him. I feel like he's going to figure it out. Probably already has. Canna from the Mets, Mark Canna. Damn, I almost forgot his first name. He's another slow one. So he's a batter. He's going to have to speed up a little bit. Pete Alonso of the New York Mets. Pete, the polar bear is going to have to speed it up. Get some skates on, Pete. Get your ass moving. He is a little plumpy, though. That guy can hit a goddamn home run a mile. But, man, he's a pretty big old boy. But he's going to have to work on his speed in and out of the batter's box this year. Christian Vasquez also came up on the very slow end side of the Major League Baseball roster. And you can go to StatCast and look at others, but those definitely top the list. Something that I was looking at very early on was the shift going away, knowing that we won't know really the true effect of the shift. But you got to think common sense, and I don't know of any analysis. I know, well, there is analysis out there. Some of those guys I told you about that have wonderful analysis, like the CBS team there at Fantasy Baseball Today and Fantasy Pros. I mean, they'll go into a really deep dive into statistics where they have talked about already lefties who, by some advanced statistics, they could determine if the shift wasn't in place last year, what's the probability of the expected changes in their performance based on that. Now, don't get me started on how they build an algorithm for that. I think my 14-year-old son could do it, but I have no damn chance at doing any of that shit successfully. But I will tell you, if you listen to those guys, they do break it down even further so you can get some of that depth of information and then apply it, because I'm more of an applier. I mean, I didn't get to where I have achieved in fantasy baseball by being necessarily a great analyst. But I do feel like I'm more of an operational guy. I'm a guy who can put those things together, put them into action in a coherent strategy that wins. And it's simple. I'm not trying to make up shit here. I'm just trying to tell you like it is. So slow tempo players on StatCast. Good place to get a lot of information. The shift again, who knows? I mean, I think there are again. I've heard names thrown out there where advanced stats seem to favor that the expectation is they get much improved stats. And I know Corey Seager's name came up, the shortstop for the Texas Rangers, lefty, that there's a good feeling out there that he's one of them that would see some significant enhanced performance because of the shift going away. So you might want to look at left-handed batters as well, and that's something we'll talk about later in draft preparation, getting the meat and potatoes of it, and we talk about some of the basics of it in the BadAzz Sessions number 3 that'll be coming up this week. So you can tune in or pull that up and listen to that this week as we really get in the weeds with draft preparation. Stolen bases. Hey, is anybody going to steal 80 bags this year? I don't know. Ricky Henderson coming back? Probably not 80 bags. I heard someone throw that out there somewhere. I don't know. What do y'all think? I don't think there's any way in hell someone's going to get 80 bags, but I could be wrong too. I think somebody's going to get 60, but just let me know how you feel about that out there. Send me something on Twitter or Facebook and let me know what you think one of the high bag total will be this year. It's always something we're hunting in fantasy baseball, folks, is pitching and people that can steal bags. So that might be a note to yourself too, is to make sure you prioritize some of that in your draft, that stolen bases, so you can not be chasing that the John Birdies of the world all at the end of the year. All right, the effect of the World Baseball Classic that's coming up. I don't know what the effect is. When I try to think about whether it's an advantage or disadvantage competing in that, I don't know. For some players, I think it'll be an advantage. I think at least getting out of the gate early in the season, it might be an advantage. Who knows? I think for the batters, it might help them establish their timing, unless they're way off and they just have a horrible World Baseball Classic. And then basically they need to hurry their asses back to spring training and get it right. I would tend to think it'll help the hitters. The pitchers are the question for me. People that are going to the World Baseball Classic are not going to be like at an all-star basketball game, standing around throwing Harlem Globetrotter, alley-oops to LeBron. They're going to be, and people just standing around, they're going to be competing at the highest level, full max effort. So I do wonder about that getting out of the gate. Is that going to help pitchers? I don't know. I'll throw that out to the community as well. So let me know about stolen bases. What do you think the high number is going to be? And let me know your take on whether you think participating in the World Baseball Classic will help or hinder performance in fantasy baseball this year. Be eager to know your takes on that. There's also the effect of schedule changes. There was a lot of changes this year, and it's going to be exciting. I'm telling you, the clock, and I'm an older guy. I'll be 60 years old in June. I've been watching baseball for a number of years, and I will just say that instantly when I started watching those spring training games with the clock, I could just tell. I mean, it's just, if you haven't already watched any games, Just go watch these games in spring training and see the batter, how they're getting in and out of the box, the pitcher. Try to, and for guys who've been watching for a while, the eye test should be obvious that it's speeding up the game. So I love that. The effect of MLB schedule changes now presents itself kind of a unique little issue too with respect to fantasy baseball. So the schedule changes are that each years previous, last year and beyond, there were so many division games that each team played. So if you were in the, for instance, the AL East, and you were the New York Yankees, you might play, and sorry, I can't remember the exact games, but maybe last year you played the Boston Red Sox 19 times. This year, my understanding of the new schedule changes are less divisional games and then more spreading out games across the entire Major League Baseball. So teams are playing a more consistent schedule, so to speak, I guess. Now, fantasy baseball-wise, think about this from pitchers' perspectives and stuff. When we used, and we still may do this, but when it was obvious that we could, in a division, a strong division with a very weak team, we knew that pitchers on those good teams with those very weak teams, we're going to get some pretty easy starts during the year. And the more weak teams in that division, the more likelihood that pitcher throughout the year is going to at least have the opportunity to play teams of lesser stripes, so to speak. What's been, pretty apparent from that for a while is take the American League Central, for example. So you have Cleveland in that division, but then you have a bunch of who's, So that effect is going to be lessened. It's not going to go away. It's just going to be lessened from, let's say, example, maybe instead of 19 games, the Yankees will play the Red Sox. The Yankees will play the Red Sox 13 times this year. And the Toronto, the same with the Blue Jays and on and on with the teams within their division playing less games within the division, more games spread out across the entire Major League Baseball. So it does have some impacts. I mean, some of the gains or some of the advantages that you would used to take with weak divisions, so to speak, you may keep that in mind, those schedule changes, that will lessen or make that impact greater. So we'll watch that as the year goes on. I mean, it's a learning experience. If you're new, new to fantasy baseball, it doesn't mean a hill of beans and you're joining at the right time because you won't have to deal with those changes. But those who have been following fantasy baseball for a while will know that that those changes are something that we'll have to make some adjustments to, and we'll talk about those prior to the season and then throughout the season as well. I did want to make a note that, and I almost didn't put this note in, for people who are playing on the Yahoo Fantasy app or the Yahoo Fantasy platform, whether on your desktop, iPad, phone, whatever. If you played Yahoo Fantasy Baseball last year and you won your league, any league, public, private, whatever, Yahoo has this really cool thing. They had it last year, and I'm assuming they have it this year. But somebody will have to tell me out there. If you won a league last year, I didn't. I finished second twice, and I finished third or fourth in the other league, the three leagues I was in. So, but if you won in Yahoo Fantasy Baseball last year, you are eligible to join what they call a winners league. Winner, WINNER league. I highly encourage you, if you are eligible, by winning last year a championship. Get on those winning leagues. Those are super fun. I played one last year. It was a diamond level league. And I think out of the 12 teams, I think we had 9 diamond level players and 3 platinum level players. So even if you're not at that level, but you won a league, you're eligible to join in one of these winter leagues, and I assure you, you'll have a blast. So if you're fortunate enough to meet that eligibility, please go out there and join one of those leagues. Those are fun, and then let me know you joined it and how that goes, because those are a blast. Really great competition against people who've already won before. So get in there and be a badass. And if you do, shoot me a line, and I'll send a kudos out over the podcast that you're in the Winners League. Just some media contact information. Again, my website, I was going to say our. And if I say our this, our that, just know it's me, myself, and I. But my website is www.badazzsports.com. And you can certainly reach out. I have a presentation slides posted out there for the BadAzz sessions if you just want to read slides instead of listen or watch the sessions online. And also, again, that link to get on and register or to send a request to join the Yahoo, our BadAzz Fantasy Baseball Podcast League. Twitter, you can find me at Roto_Rudy. That's Roto, ROTO_Rudy, RUDY. Shoot me a line out there sometime. Say hi, follow me, and we can discuss offline whatever you want to discuss with fantasy baseball, and I'll try to answer any questions that you have there in a timely manner. Look for BadAzz Fantasy Baseball on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Facebook. So that's the way you can go out there and reach me. And the way I can reach you, because I'm interested in building this community for all of us. So come join this community. However small and big it is, it'll be our community. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If I play fantasy baseball and I get pissed off because a player is playing like shit, during the season, we're going to call it like it is. If they're playing like shit, we're going to say they're playing like shit. I might even burn their baseball card. So we're going to call it like it is. And hell, if you're great and you're a stud and you're knocking it out, then we're going to call those players out and give them kudos. But when they're playing like shit, I don't want to be held back by the FCC on what I can say, because you just can't say it enough under those rules. So I'm going to have a very short baseball history moment here, because I think baseball, it's important to celebrate or talk about, at least for 30 seconds, something from our past. And I hope you can see this. And again, I told y'all, me, myself, and I, production, editing, broadcasting, research, every damn thing. So here we go. This is today's, and I know I'm getting some shine back. Okay, this, my friends, is Ted Williams. Okay? I'm getting older, but I got to tell you guys out there, when you watch baseball, I think it's with all sports. They'll say, oh, this is one of the greatest performances ever. This is one of the greatest moments in the history of baseball. I just want to share with you a greatest moment or moments over a few years of Ted Williams' career. And that's not to down people that play now. It's just put this shit in perspective. Come on now. Let's put it in perspective. Okay, Ted Williams, this is his baseball card kind of slash line, as you call it today, or whatever the hell you call it today, from 1941 to 1947. This is what Ted Williams did. In 1941, he batted .406. In 1942, he won the Triple Crown. From 1943 through 1945, he went to war for our country in World War II. And he didn't just go around signing autographs and shit and showing off his bat and his his throwing arm. He was a fighter. He was a pilot in World War II. So 3 years he spent fighting war for our country. In 1946, the very season after he returned, he won the MVP. In 1947, he won the Triple Crown. That, my friends, is greatness. Wow. Just think about that. The next time somebody says this is great, that's great. That shit is great right there. That's badass. And if there was a BadAzz Hall of Fame, he would be in the BadAzz Hall of Fame. Hell, let's just make a BadAzz Hall of Fame. Fuck it. I'm putting Ted Williams. I'm going to write this down. The BadAzz Hall of Fame. First entry is Ted Williams. And no, I'm not old enough to have watched him play, you fuckers out there. I can just hear somebody watching this right now and saying, Jesus, when this guy is talking about Ted Williams, how fucking old is he? Okay. That was a lot longer for the history moment, but now we're going to talk about ADP, risers and fallers. And I just want to put some of these guys on the radar. And some of them, this information comes from a couple sources. One from the Yahoo Fantasy platform. I pulled some of the ADP moves from their preseason ranks and whether they're going up or down. And also looked at the Fantasy Pros list, where they do a deviation between the consensus ranking and what the current ADP, when they're getting drafted in all drafts across the spectrum of fantasy baseball, and what that difference is. So, for instance, this first group of folks here, when I looked at some of those stats, they are being drafted. This group is being drafted much higher than what consensus ranking and preseason rankings have tended to put them at. Now, that doesn't mean that they're being over valued and drafted much too soon. It may be that the people out there drafting know what they're doing. Maybe it's not always black and white. But the first two on the list that come up as being drafted far ahead of their supposed rank is Will Smith, catcher of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Adley Rutschman of the Baltimore Orioles. Young catcher, was a rookie last year. And obviously these are catchers. So people who played fantasy baseball know and have played before know that catchers sometimes get bumped up in the draft order in certain drafts because there starts to be a run on catchers and there's not a whole lot of them around, and there certainly aren't any other JT Realmutos around. But those two lead the way or came up on the list. And this is not an inclusive list. It was just ones that catch your eye and have a wide margin. Kenley Jansen's being drafted also quite substantially ahead of what the perceived rank was. And that could be a run on people believing that these folks are going to have a good season too. And they're moving up the draft board. So you can look at it two different ways. But the variance between that ranking and the now draft positioning has fluctuated in a trend being drafted sooner, much sooner than what the perceived value is. Bryce Harper's on that list as well. And that might make sense that people would take chances on upside, knowing that he's injured, knowing that he's going to miss some time coming at the start of the season. But yet, you're going to get one of the best players in baseball once he comes back, if he's healthy. One of the biggest things you'll hear, or the most frequent thing that you'll hear preseason, especially before the season starts, is people will say, if healthy, or if healthy, blah, blah, blah. And that's why I mark people on my list in my draft preparation and track these injuries, because I don't like to play the if healthy thing too often. You're really playing with fire in baseball when you got the season hasn't even started and you're dealing with injuries. I will tell you my past experience with it is that typically it just doesn't work out most times. Okay, now on the other side of that, your risers and fallers are people who are being drafted far below. They're being drafted far below what preseason ranks and consensus ranks are saying they rank these guys. So these guys are actually could be considered bargains from one perspective, or are they dropping from what the perceived rank is because of something that has transpired? Or maybe it happened last year and there's just a lot of volatility to those players. Tim Anderson's one on the list. And, of course, you can go back to his injury last year and say, well, at this point he's being drafted far below what the perceived consensus ranking is of Tim Anderson, maybe because he's coming back from that injury. Not sure how to take that one, other than if you perceive Tim Anderson as going to be fully back from that injury, then he could be perceived as a good value in the draft. Christian Yelich come up on the list too. He's being drafted far lower than what the perceived ranking and value is. Nick Castellanos is also in that category, but I can tell you a lot of people are going to be a little nervous about Nick Castellanos because of his play last year, notwithstanding one of the worst first years of a contract I've seen from a guy in a long time. That was a huge drop off. Is he going to come back? Is he going to have a breakout, and be a comeback player of the year type thing? I don't know. But right now, I think the consensus is with the ADP is that people aren't buying into Nick Castellanos. Maybe the experts are, but the overall consensus of all fantasy people drafting is no. Jorge Polanco is also on that list, being drafted far lower than his perceived value. Ryan Mountcastle of the Orioles also in that category. And ending the list, Nico Horner of the Cubs as well. So their perceived value from experts and consensus, they're being drafted much later than that. So there may be some value to looking at those folks and putting them on the radar. One of the things I do every year is go back. I go back to the previous year and do a kind of an after-action review, as we used to call it in the Army. And, yeah, I spent a lot of time in the Army. I spent 21 years in and retired several years ago, and I loved it. But we used to do AARs, after-action reviews. And I think they're still valuable today, and certainly for fantasy baseball players out there it is. So what I wanted to look at from last year, and I did this at the end of last year, made some notes about people that their preseason consensus rankings, and take that and evaluate them against their season total and what they actually performed. And then I tried to take some of those biggest variables and put people in a group of those who were underperformers and then those who far exceeded their ranking expectation. And that can tie into a lot of factors in your draft preparation and building that draft board for that draft day. And at the top of that list was of the folks whose season performances were not anywhere near with their consensus rank, Fernando Tatis Jr. would lead that list. And he's going to have there's a lot of debate about Fernando Tatis this year. Because looking at last year, it was obvious that his suspension, his injuries, and all that big hodgepodge soup bowl that is the drama of Fernando fucking Tatis Jr. is, we don't know what to expect. He's got wrist injuries, shoulder. I mean, fucking worming medicine, whatever the hell that story was. He's got a lot of risk. Is the upside there? No doubt about it. His upside but last year, serious deviation. Much of it couldn't be helped. Much of it was manufactured by Fernando. And he cost a lot of people in fantasy baseball, I assure you, on his performance. And by the way, any of these names I'm going to discuss would have hurt you pretty significantly based on where you drafted them, because it would have been much higher than what they end up performing. Wander Franco was on that list, another one with injury issue there. But same thing, far below expectations. Javi Baez, somebody who was not injured, who had a horrible year. You could even found him on the waiver wire in many leagues last year because people just gave up on him. Had a horrendous year. So if you drafted him, he hurt you. Tim Anderson, again, he came up again on this list. Injury again. And so he far fell below his expectation, most of it injury related, and limiting his games played. Nick Castellanos makes this glorious list again. He was a super duper underachiever last year in the fantasy world. Byron Buxton, a frequent flyer to the underachievers. Matter of fact, if I had a fucking BadAzz fantasy baseball underachiever wall of shame, Byron Buxton would be on that son of a gun. I can guarantee you that. So what can you say if you played fantasy baseball? This is one of the guys that, upside-wise, has all the tools to carry a fantasy baseball team, help you carry you to the championship. Just a phenomenal what we call five-category player. But he also is in that group that we're always saying, if healthy. Well, he's not healthy. They might say he's healthy, but he's Byron Buxton. And we all know he's not going to be healthy at some point during the season. I hope he's good. I hope he plays 150 games. But the track record doesn't say that he will. So, and he certainly didn't last year. Luis Robert of the Chicago White Sox makes this list. Somebody they've been talking about with tools, Mike Trout tools. I remember his first year they said that, and 5-tool this and that, and it just has not materialized. And frankly, some baseball players, their potential materializes in their career. Sometimes it doesn't. Maybe Luis Robert is one of those, because he hasn't had a season like the expectations have called for yet. Not to say it wouldn't happen, but it hadn't happened yet. Bryce Harper makes this list, another list. And, of course, his was injury-related, and number of games played hurt him bad. So if you drafted him, hurt you bad. If you drafted Salvador Perez, you also got hurt because you drafted him way too high, which I knew already. Don't draft him high. And he fizzled out. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, here is some of the guys that far exceeded their preseason consensus rankings and the expectations going in. Kyle Schwarber, he was a stud last year. If you had Kyle Schwarber, Indiana University graduate, one hell of a player, and he really helped your team out there and probably helped win a lot of championships. Shohei Ohtani, another guy, far exceeded the rankings and expectations. Dansby Swanson, contract year. He picked a good year to have a great year because the contract year thing kicked in for him. He had a great year and helped a lot of teams win championships. Adolis Garcia, a guy that came in being drafted, I can't remember, but somewhere maybe in the 180s, 200s maybe, and he just far exceeded those the draft positions that he was being drafted at. And, of course, J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, one of the studs. I mean, had he not had those back soreness late in the year, I mean, he would even done better. But he far up and away exceeded expectations, as everybody knows that watch baseball. Christian Walker was kind of a surprise. I thought he was done. I've had him on teams a couple years ago, and he pissed me off so bad. Had such a shitty season, and I said, he's just going to make my shit list. And once you make my shit list, no matter if you come back or not, I might forgive you, but I'm not putting you back on my roster. But he had a hell of a year last year. So if you drafted Christian Walker, you look pretty goddamn good. Anthony Rizzo was also in that category. Brandon Nimmo and Eugenio Suarez of the Seattle Mariners also performed awesomely last year. Okay, some of the duds, some of the limp dicks from the pitching side. And I'm sure this is not news to you, but if you played it all last year, you've heard that Lucas Giolito just had a horrendous year. He was horrible. So you drafted him high, probably in the second or, I don't know, third, fourth round maybe, I don't know, last year, and he was just horrible. And he hurt a lot of teams out there if you drafted him. Charlie Morton was another one, Atlanta Braves. Charlie Morton is usually somebody you can count on being really consistent. One thing you can damn sure count on is Charlie Morton's going to get you a bunch of strikeouts. But based on his preseason rank and what he ended up, it was pretty hideous. Jose Barrios of the Toronto Blue Jays, starting pitcher, also fell flat last year. Jack Flaherty, injury-related, St. Louis Cardinals, but also Nathan Eovaldi of now the Texas Rangers, last year with the Boston Red Sox. Nathan Eovaldi is special because where the location of where we're filming this BadAzz Fantasy Baseball podcast is Alvin, Texas, my town of where I live and where I work. And Nathan Eovaldi is also from Alvin, Texas, along with another pretty well-known pitcher from Alvin, Texas, Nolan Ryan, the Ryan Express. Yep. He went to high school here at Alvin High School. Yeah, it's a true story. And Nathan Eovaldi as well. So they made the list. Aroldis Chapman, who is now a Kansas City Royal, was on the New York Yankees last year. And, of course, he got banished to Kansas City because I think he pissed off people. He probably pissed off Aaron Boone, and that's hard to do. But is he going to have a bounce back? Because he bottomed out last year. So is there stuff in the tank for Aroldis Chapman? More to come on that one. Some of our studs, our stars from the pitching side, Alek Manoah was just great. If you put him on your roster, you were banking with him. Emmanuel Clase, reliever for the Indians, super year, big time upside was realized last year. Zach Gallen, starting pitcher for the Diamondbacks of Arizona. Tony Gonsolin, the Cat Man. You got to love the Cat Man. I have two cats, Charlotte and Kitty. And after I heard the story last year about the Cat Man, Tony Gonsolin, I was a big fan of his. So Tony Gonsolin had a hell of a year last year. Dylan Cease, these are all guys that had great years. Ryan Helsley, of the reliever of the St. Louis Cardinals. Yu Darvish of the Padres. Nasty Nestor Cortez of the New York Yankees. And by the way, he had some type of injury thing going on, by the way. And he pulled out the World Baseball Classic. Christian Javier of the Astros, starting pitcher, had a great year last year. Tyler Anderson, who got that big, another contract year guy, and he got that big contract with the Los Angeles Angels. Spencer Strider. Do I need to say anything more? If you had Spencer Strider, if you drafted him, by the way, let me know, because I don't know, you must have been Nostradamus or used the magic 8-ball. I don't know what the hell you did to come up with him. But I did get to pick him up in one or two of my leagues on the waiver wire. So that's sometimes how championships are achieved, is the waiver wire. And we'll certainly talk a lot about that during the season, because if you can champion that, you can become a champion. Okay, Tristan McKenzie also rounded out that list, had a great year. Okay, so I will tell you out there, I have some baseball cards because, like a lot of people who love fantasy baseball, they love baseball in general, and a lot of people who love baseball like baseball cards. I've always collected cards through the years when I was a kid, and I collect some today. And I will tell you, if you will go out there and follow me on one of my platforms and shoot me a message and say hi, I will send you either a Legends card from, looks like the Topps Gallery collection from last year, and a Topps All-Star version from the base set of Topps last year. And these legend players, I'll give you a choice of Mike Piazza. Man, was that a great catcher. That guy could hit. Chipper Jones of the Braves. I have a Reggie Jackson card here, a Buster Posey, Ozzie Smith, and Bo Jackson. Pretty cool card right there if you can see it. Bo Jackson. Yeah, that's nice. So these came out of the collection from last year's Topps series. Now, you can pick one of those from the Legends group or my rookie group from last year. Rookie card group consisting of Jake McCarthy, who I think a lot of, with the outfielder with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Got his rookie card right here. I'll send it to you. Just go follow me on one of my platforms and shoot me a message and tell me if you want somebody from the Legends group or the rookie group. And I have Cal Raleigh, catcher for the Seattle Mariners, and I love his nickname, the Big Dumper. At least I hear that on MLB Network all the time. Here's a really fine rookie pitcher of the Cincinnati Reds, Hunter Green. Hunter Green, I really like him a lot too. Lots of strikeouts, folks. Lots of strikeouts. And last but certainly not least, someone I am really high on this year. Love this guy. His exit velo off his bat is remarkable. O'Neill Cruz, the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's his rookie card from the Topps Gallery collection. So get on there and follow me and let me know who you are and how I can get that card to you, and I'll ship it out to you. So without further ado, I do want to tell you that throw out a couple MLB player nicknames. We already talked about the Big Dumper, Cal Raleigh. Love that one. I love the Polar Bear that we mentioned earlier, Pete Alonso. Love nicknames. I like the El Nino for Fernando Tatis, which is the kid. And I love actually the one for Luis Robert of the White Sox, the La Pantera, the Panther. I like that one. Okay, so remember, go to the website. There's a link out there to join the BadAzz Fantasy Baseball Podcast League, 12-team league in Yahoo. Go out there and sign up for that league. Let's get this community going. If you join the league and you want to engage during the season with the podcast, that's kind of the intention, is get in the league. We can discuss moves that we make within the league. If you're in a learning mode, you can certainly follow along during the season and use it as an opportunity to learn how it is to be a better player. If you feel like you're a good player and you just want to be competitive, come on, bring it head to head with a diamond level player, Rudy Rudolph, right here. You join that league, play me, and of course 11 other players. But come on, click that link at badazzsports.com. Okay, that's going to conclude today's live stream on this Sunday, March 5th, in the year of 2023. Can't believe it. Baseball's almost here. 3 weeks to opening day, folks. Stay with us. Come back to our site. Check some of the pre-recorded stuff that's going to be coming out in between these live podcast live streams on Sundays at 7 Central Time. I'll catch you on the next one. This is Rudy Rudolph saying good night, everybody, and have a badass day every day.